Hey hotshots, Jess with Emotional Fire Academy here today to talk about creativity, the jewel at the edge of your comfort zone, with our lovely guest speaker, Mari Reisberg, creativity cultivator extraordinaire. Welcome, Mari. Mari is a therapist, coach, performer, and vivacious host of the Sustaining Creativity podcast. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. It's a joy to have you. And she's an amazing
Thank you so much.
Karaoke singer as well. All right.
Thank you.
It goes with your many hats, just to be able to rock a room like
I know.
So
I wear many, many hats.
You do, and it shows. I think people who are very flexible, it kind of like comes out of them, and so that's definitely something I appreciate about you, Mari. Thank you for letting me schmooze on you a little bit there. So I always like to start our expert chats with just kind of defining what we're talking about. Today's topic, of course, is creativity. So what does creativity mean to you? Just in a general sense.
Oh my gosh. Creativity in a general sense is energy. It's ideas, it's life force, it's breath, it's it's like feeling really alive and really present. It's also really fun and has so much joy and so much happiness connected to it. And it makes me want to have more of it in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's addictive.
It is. In the best way.
Of course. I was thinking about how I would answer this. I was like, creativity, it is kind of a state of consciousness. And the first word that popped into my mind is like insight. It's very insightful, right? It gives us a new perspective on life, on something that maybe we may have already approached, but that we're coming in at a different angle. And that I also got that, like, I was like, what does it feel like? Like that lightness that it is. You're right. All of those things you said, it's very life-giving. It is life force. Totally.
Yeah. And, I think there's also another facet to it, which is very much problem solving and, putting into action. And that's where we get into innovation. Mm-hmm. So creativity really is that coming up with the ideas, and innovation is putting these ideas into action. So there's different pieces that make up the experience of creativity.
Oh, of course. Yes. And how do let's kind of dive deeper into the body feel of creativity and like how we know we've hit kind of the sweet spot with creativity. It might be kind of obvious when there is a problem, but like, how do we, again, know when we're in it?
I think we know when we're in it, when we are really curious about what's going on, when we ask a lot of questions about something and we want to learn more about whatever it is that's happening or going on. So curiosity, when you're curious, you're steeped in creativity in that moment. Or when you're daydreaming and kind of drifting in thoughts or fantasies or imagination, that's also that sweet spot of creativity. And we don't daydream enough. Like, when was the last time you set time aside to daydream and think about, what would I do with a missing sock, or who knows what, whatever it is.
Yes, the adventure that my missing sock went on. Like, where is that sock?
Right, exactly. And maybe I come up with a story about the adventure of my missing sock, or that the missing sock went on. But that sweet spot is, for me, when I really feel like I am immersed in creativity, is when I'm not thinking about other things. I'm not distracted by other things. I'm in what many people call flow. And it is as if time disappears. We're so involved with what we're doing. We're in the present moment so much. We lose track of time. we forget to eat, we forget to, all the other things that we may need to do don't matter. For runners or athletes, it's that you feel like you become one with the road or one with the turf. Or for a musician, it's like when you're in the pocket with a song, or you hit a groove and it just feels amazing and your body expands and you just want to keep doing more of that.
Yes. Yeah, yes. I wrote down flow. It's flow. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And I have experienced it too, as like, sometimes you can get like a little burst of where the entire storyline or the entire, the adventure of the sock, it all comes to you all in one burst. Or sometimes it is that continuous, like, bing, 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 like your brain is lighting up and it's a continuous flow state. But I love, those are all, I mean, it's just so fascinating to get into that. And your mind quiets. It's either like you can be negative self-talking, or you can be in the creative space, which totally silences that. And you get to pick. And I agree with you that people we have this incredible capacity for imagination. And when I could be, when I'm mired in worst case scenario, I could just as easily be mired in best case scenario, and imagining the best outcome and savoring that and that creative experience, even if it, for those who subscribe to manifestation, even if it doesn't manifest in my physical reality, I still I have the pleasure of, that creative life-giving force in my own mind. So I totally agree.
That benefit of giving yourself a break from the worst case scenario experience. Our minds need vacations. Send your mind on a vacation, right? Yes. And the sweet spots of, there are so many sweet spots in creativity to visit instantaneously. I mean, how many things in life are instantaneous? Not many. Right. So except this. So I love that. You're the oneness, that experience of oneness. I agree. It's, I've heard flow described as, it's that spot between, if the environment is too much, if too many demands are being placed on you, you're overwhelmed, right? If there aren't enough, you're bored. So it's that perfect balance, right? Where your expertise and the demands of the environment are perfectly matched and you're stretching just enough. So absolutely. It's really about the experience and the process and not about the end result or the product. You're super immersed in that experience that you're moving through, whatever it is that you're doing, writing, drawing, cooking, cleaning, gardening, but that you're so in that present moment. It doesn't matter. It could turn out awful, but that doesn't matter. You're so in the moment and experiencing it that you could stay in that moment and it doesn't have to end. Yeah. And that I love that you mentioned the timelessness. It kind of, time takes on a different quality. Your body, like you're not as self-conscious, like all the judgments that you have about yourself, and they're all kind of melt away. And it is this beautiful reprieve, I think, from our normal operating system, right? Absolutely. And normal life, trudging it out, and then like flow, creativity. Yeah, it's I think life force so far has been my favorite. The words that you use to describe it's very life-giving and present. It is. And yet we don't value that, and we don't create time for it. We have a list of things, a to-do list, but when was the last time you put like creative pause on your to-do list or creative play on your to-do list? It's just as important as folding the laundry or, Oh yeah. For mental health. Definitely. Yes. And it's something easy that you can do, that everyone can do, it doesn't require instruction. You can just kind of, like you said, go into your imagination and play, and for the sake of play. I love that.
Um, so let's start to kind of tease out some of, these different terms, creativity from other things. Let's contrast them. The first one I want to talk about, which is intention, creativity and intention, and how our intention plays into the creative space.
Yeah. I feel like intention, we have to have an intention to be creative or to be curious about creativity. That's the intention, or that's like the initial spark. And then it moves into creative expression, experience, creative being, showing up in creativity. But if we don't have the intention, we don't set the intention of this, I am choosing to have the opportunity to be creative, or I'm choosing to flex my creativity when I cook dinner tonight. And that's my intention, to cook dinner with creativity. So the intention comes first, and then the creative experience kind of is that the outcome of that intention. So I think that's how they differ. Intention is, I want more creativity in my life. Creativity is how I'm going to go about doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It's kind of like the starting block.
Yeah.
A vessel, I see as kind of like a frame, or a vessel or a frame. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this in this capacity. And then that's when, once you unleash that, you create within the intention of, I guess it is just setting a goal for creativity in whatever capacity you want to. I guess I was kind of edging on too, like, this might be a little off the cuff if you're okay with freestyling it.
Bring it.
But if we have too much, what happens if we have too much, we're trying to force it. There's that fine balance between like, where is that line of intending, but then if this, we're not getting a flow based,
right.
Where's the boundaries for all these things?
Yeah. I mean, I think we can get really caught up in the cognitive piece of intention, and creativity is more of a body experience of that. So we can set the intention, I want to be creative while cooking dinner. And sometimes the best laid plans go awry. and that's where creativity shows up. And so being able to set the intention and step into the process, so not step into the product. And that, I think, can be a helpful differentiation between, I have a goal of flexing creativity, but not in these very narrow parameters. So I'm allowing creativity to show up and be however zany and kooky and silly and goofy and weird as it wants. And can I do that without judgment? Can I allow my creativity to show up in cooking a meal that may turn out awful? Is that okay? Can I be okay with the uncertainty of the outcome and just enjoy the process and the experience of it?
Yes. Detaching from outcome to enjoy the process, which is, easier said than done for a lot of us, because we're so, Western society is so goal oriented. We're so like, okay, task, got to stay on task. Like you said, the to-do list, got to make dinner. Oh, I got too creative, and now there's too much cayenne pepper in the chicken. And now what do we do? Like, so remembering, I think in those instances, to be very light on yourself and be like, but I really enjoyed, and I learned. I think that's also framing it in like a learning, if maybe you didn't get to your goal, being like, but I really enjoyed putting all that cayenne pepper in, and it was, I've learned from it. And it's sometimes, seeing the trees from the forest, and and making sure to have the right frame of reference after the experience and be like, okay, this is what I got from that. And the process is really fun, even if I didn't reach my destination. So.
Right. And I think what you just said, the process was really fun. Creativity is about having fun and bringing more joy and happiness into your life. So yeah, it might have failed the recipe. And how much fun did you have in the process of it? Or what joy did you bring? I'm like, this was really exciting and fun. And now it's kind of silly that it turned out so bad. Can I laugh at it? Can I give myself permission to be a little gentle on myself? Not everything has to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be normal. I read this great quote from Maya Angelou the other day of like, if you spend so much time trying to be normal, you miss out on all the spectacular things you can do.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. Or who you can be, or, you know, I'm paraphrasing her quote, but
exactly. Yeah. Cause normal is such a limited amount of behaviors, you know, and there's so many more that are available to us. I love that. I totally agree with that. I've been practicing that most of my life.
Yes.
How about you? Have you?
Oh, 1,000%. I've always done things a little differently than everyone else. And that has really, you know, benefited me. And there have been times in my life where I've thought, oh, I have to be exactly like everyone else. And then it was just soul crushing. And when I went back to being myself, life was so much better. God. Oh, yeah. Doors open that I thought would never open, you know, those types of things. So knowing who you are and stepping into that and showing up in that space, whew, what a relief.
Oh, yeah. It completely is. And typically it is outside of normal parameters, right? And that authenticity, the creativity, it's all the good stuff is outside of the normal parameters.
Exactly. And creativity comes alive at the edge of our comfort zone. And so when we can get to the edge of our comfort zone, that's when creativity really explodes and blossoms, and so many more things become available to us.
All right. Well, speaking of comfort, so let's start to talk about safety, like how, you know, comfort and safety. We see comfort because it's safe, it's familiar. How do safety and creativity interact? And I know you've done a podcast on this, and so can you distill this for us? What have you discovered about safety and creativity?
Well, safety really is the foundation of creativity. If we don't feel safe enough to try something new, to take a risk, to look silly or foolish, we won't do it. So feeling safe in our space, in our mind, in our environment, in whatever structure or system we're in, is so important to being able to flex more creativity in our life, in our work, in our whatever we choose to do in our life. And without it, it really prohibits us from, or keeps us from, engaging in creative expression or creative experiences. So when we have that foundation of safety, now I should caveat here, nothing is 100% safe. So we like to say safe enough. So you feel safe enough to take small risks, not the jump off the high dive into the deep end of the pool and you can't swim risk. What's a stretch for you, or what's a reach for you, not the panic experience. And so having that foundation of safety actually allows our creativity, which comes from our subconscious, to show up in bigger, louder, brighter, more, you know, more abundant ways in our life, because we aren't spending all of our time managing our safety. So when we think about evolutionary, we spent a lot of time making sure we weren't going to get eaten by carnivorous things. And so we didn't have a lot of extra capacity to be creative. A lot of our time and energy and effort was spent making sure we were safe. And now that we don't have to spend, I would say, as much time anytime. I mean, you're not being eaten by a, whatever you could potentially be eaten by these days. We have a little more capacity in our brain to engage with other things. And so that's where safety and creativity play off each other and support one another.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm having a brain fart here. While you were talking, I was thinking about evolution and how consciously, one of the biggest, when humans started to really show a marked shift in their consciousness was when they started to do creative things, like when they started to do cave paintings and, make calendars and these more abstract things that came from the mind. And I think that's also where, maybe even like letting go of safety momentarily just to see what happens, just to, because in order to evolve, we have to kind of let go of what we know, what is safe and familiar, just see what happens, just like, I'm just going to give this a shot. Yeah. And that is when we can blossom into those spaces of, okay, I didn't die. I lived after this experience, and how important that is to kind of, so I'm curious if it's feeling safe or just feeling momentarily like I can let go of safety and familiarity just for a little bit to do this, to do whatever this creative thing is. And, it might maybe more be the problem solving side of it. I'm sure the first people to gather honey were very oh, this doesn't seem like a great idea safety wise, but I'm just going to go for it. Right. So I don't know. What do you think it's can we kind of tease out together? Is it an inherent safety that people feel to be able to let go? Or do you think it's just an abandonment of I'm just going to see what happens? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably both. I mean, I think when we feel safe enough to let go of our focus on safety, that's, I think, because we feel safe. We don't have to spend a lot of time and energy on, do I feel safe? No, I know I feel safe. Therefore, I don't have to think about it. I'm going to go try this thing that freaks me out because I want to grow my comfort zone, or I want to stretch, or I want to learn something about myself. And yeah, it feels a little scary, but I'm not outside of my, my ability to tolerate the new experience. So I think that's where that safety piece comes in. We don't have to think so much about it when we've attended to it. Okay, I know what it feels like to feel safety in my body. And when someone asks me, oh, do you want to go on this awesome roller coaster? I may have to check in and then be yes, I do. And it might freak me out completely, but I feel okay enough to say yes to it and try it. And it could be awful, and I may totally regret it after it happens, but I get to learn something about myself. I get to learn something about the experience. And, it might help me make a choice about something if someone were to ask me about something in the future, or, if I wanted to. I'm trying to think of the things that people have recently asked me to do. And I'm like, ooh, maybe not. I don't know. I guess mountain biking. I am not a mountain biker at all. And when someone is like, do you want to go mountain biking? My initial response is, oh, hell no. There's nothing you could do to get me to do that. And then that's my initial response. And then when I actually sit and think about it, I'm like, oh, okay, well, if we did a green mountain bike run, maybe I could do that. And then progress. But like, I'm not going to do a double black diamond mountain bike run. No. That does not feel safe to me because I don't have the skills and tools. But, you know, that's that check-in with yourself. And it might be just a split second. Like you aren't taking a lot of time to be like, okay, let me see. Do I feel safe? Am I breathing? It could be like, no, totally safe. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go. And other times it's like, nope, for sure. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. It's interesting how it's like you check in with your own maybe identity or your because you're visualizing, okay, I'm doing this. Is this me? Yes or no? Like, am I, it's a really interesting, just cognitive, quick thing that you do when you assess that and whether you would be, that's interesting. And I agree, the kind of paradox of, it's like safety is assumed. When I've assumed a very stable sense of safety, then I can go, you know, it's like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine to do this. And no matter what the outcome. So it is kind of like a paradox of feeling very stable, but also letting go that happens in that space. And then when you get into that flow of, because sometimes, you know, creative spaces can take kind of crazy turns when people think they're going to be safe. And then the fireworks box is suddenly on fire. And then, I thought it was going to be okay.
Right. Yeah. So, but do you have that capacity to tolerate that if it were to happen? Yeah,
exactly. That's why it's so magical, creativity, right? Because it's both safety and letting go. It's both fear and excitement and joy and all these things wrapped up in one, right?
Yeah, totally. And fun and scary, and you know, the things that I think are creative and awesome for you, they might be your worst nightmare. And that's what I love about creativity, because it's different for everyone. It's not the same. Your experience of creative expression is different than mine. And that's how it should be. That's why we have people who love to crunch numbers, and that's their creative experience and expression. It was not my creative experience and expression, but that's okay.
Yeah, it is so individual. It is. And that jewel of that is so individualized and unique and personal. And I think oftentimes, you know, that our capacity for aloneness, you know, that ultimately we are alone is it's kind of made to be a sad story. Like ultimately you're just alone at the end of the day. But then this creative capacity that we have, our imagination, our, you know, the things we like and dislike, and those are that richness in just in ourselves is precious. And I think that's part of like connecting yourself and self-love and, you know,
totally. How are you filling your creative vessel with your personal private creativity that you don't share with anyone? Like you don't, I don't know. For me, I'm a crafty person. So I do a lot of crafting things. I knit and crochet, and I could watch movies for hours and knit and crochet, and that feels super satisfying. I can do it alone, like super satisfying and fueling for my creativity. So I can get up and do a podcast episode or a creativity coaching session, you know, be able to have that creativity banked, for lack of a better phrase. So I can show up with more of it. But finding those things that fuel you, that bring you personal joy, that you're not sharing with other people. You're just doing it because you love to do it.
Yes. And that goes right into, how do we sustain creativity? What is a good concrete tip, if you could give to everyone about how you like to sustain your creativity?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, everything can be creative. So a lot of it is how we look at the world and how we look at the things we do in the world. And start small. Creativity isn't big. How you get dressed in the morning can be a creative experience. Wear your favorite accessory or a shirt that makes you feel awesome, or, do your hair in a way that you love, or, just small things. My all-time favorite burst of creativity is a 2-minute living room solo dance party. Put on a song, move my body, and that's it. And then I go off and do something else. But it gives me just enough of like a little reset, reboot for my creativity, my energy, my focus, and then I can go back and do whatever it was I was doing. But I think that's a great little way. We just want to turn the volume up one notch on creativity. It doesn't need to go all the way to 11.
I love that. Yeah. And that's like whole body, your mind and your body are involved in that kind of a little dance party. And it's hard to be any other way other than happy and joyful when you're dancing and just having a good time. So
pick your favorite song. Yeah.
Yeah. Mental reset. I love it. That's great. I see you doing it in my mind's eye.
So many times a day. Yes.
I just want to check my notes. I think my tip comes from like the linguistic part of it is kind of loosening whatever story people have about what creativity is. I think automatically many people hear the word creativity and they think, oh, I have to be painting or drawing or singing. And seeing it as like a state of consciousness where you're just open to experimentation and flow and insight. Having an insight, you could have a creative moment, just even sitting at your desk, doing the same thing you always do. Like you said, it can just be a little shift and imagining, sometimes I do a lot of meditation and, just guided imagery of sitting at your desk and then suddenly there's vines coming out of your desk and just like seeing it transform into like Jumanji and like just that 30 seconds of like some, inner guided imagery and just, it can be so simple and just for this pure sake of enjoyment. And so I think my tip is, taking creativity out of the box and just letting it, like you said, enjoying the process, bringing it back to where we started, enjoying the process just for the sake of making yourself happy. Like that alone, whether it's a dance party or having a little, fantasy in your head. I think a lot of people have these little daily fantasies, but doing it with intention of like, I'm just going to give myself a minute to imagine that I'm a millionaire and I'm going to go, like, I'm just going to get lost in it.
Yeah. Creativity. We are all creative. There isn't a special gene that only some people have for creativity. Everyone is creative and you have to flex it to have more of it. So engage with it to get more creative.
Yes, exactly. It's true. And I think it's a disservice we do to children. We're always like telling them not to be so imaginative and, oh, that's not real. And, remembering that we were born with this capacity and it is, it's natural to us and it's easy and effortless and fun.
Yes. You're allowed to play and allowed to have fun, even as an adult.
Exactly. And that lies outside those normal limits, right? Outside the normal limits. This all makes so much sense.
Full circle. Here we are. Yeah,
exactly. So that is, I feel like we've covered a lot and yet we've really kind of come back to some core themes together. So is there anything else on creativity you'd like to share with us? Any other thoughts
about creativity? Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, creativity can change your life. Like it truly can change your life when you are worried about what you're going to do next. How creative can you dream? How big can your dreams be? Are you willing to let them be? I guess we put a lot of, I can't even think of the word right now, but like we stop ourselves a lot of the time from imagining what we truly want or what we truly think we deserve or are capable of. And creativity is here to like, show us there's so many options you never even imagined. Like, I remember, quick story, finding my experience of becoming a therapist. I knew I didn't want to be a traditional therapist. And I've always loved performing arts. I was a dancer and actor, and I had no idea that dance movement therapy was like even existed. And when someone told me about it, I was like, oh my God, yeah, that's it. That's what I want to do. So sometimes our craziest ideas actually can become a career and become a job and something that we love to do. And so stop limiting yourself. It's, I guess, I'll keep flexing your creativity and allow yourself to really show up in life with your creativity wherever you go.
I love it. It's beautiful. Yes. That's how Emotional Fire Academy came about too. It's like emotional firefighting. Perfect.
I love it.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us. How can people find more about what you do and what you put out creatively in the world?
Well, I am on all social media platforms at Sustaining Creativity. My podcast is the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. My website, sustainingcreativity.com. I have creativity coaching. You can sign up for a free creativity call and chat with me about creativity. And that's where you can find me. And those are the things that I do.
Perfect. I will link all of Mari's information in the description box below. We would love to hear your comments. If you want to leave a comment on our chat today, tell us how you are creatively contributing in your own life, in the world, in whatever context you want to add. We would love to hear you. And thank you again, Mari, for joining us today. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was such a treat.
It was.